Hey, don't flinch now. You remember their voices, don't you? The ones that whispered, "We're just trying to save you." How sweet, how holy, how heroic. But deep down, you felt it. That twitch in their tone, that static in the air. It wasn't salvation, it was containment. They weren't saving you, they were saving themselves from the version of you that woke up. See, the moment you started seeing patterns where others saw coincidences, they panicked. The day you stopped obeying noise and started listening to silence, oh, they knew. They saw that flicker in your eye that said, "Wait, this world's a stage, and I was never the extra." And right there, they realized they couldn't help you. They could only hide you. Because what happens when someone breaks their conditioning, when someone remembers they weren't built to kneel? They become unpredictable, and unpredictability is the one sin control can't forgive. So they dressed their fear as concern. They called your rebellion a phase, your clarity delusion, your awakening dangerous. They said you were changing. No, you were shedding. They said they were worried. No, they were exposed. You think they ever cared about your healing? No, they just didn't want to face what your healing would reveal. That their kindness was a leash, their guidance a disguise, and their protection a cage padded with applause. They wanted you manageable, predictable, grateful for crumbs that looked like care. Because if you ever realized who you really were, they'd lose their favorite illusion, that they were the good ones. Let's be honest, they didn't save you from the fire. They saved themselves from the phoenix. You were never a soul in danger. You were a weapon in disguise, a frequency that didn't belong to their script, a truth that refused to play dress-up in their comfort zone. And every time you tried to explain that you could feel something bigger, that your silence wasn't sadness but surgery, they smiled patronizingly, like you'd lost it. But you hadn't lost it. You'd found it. The part of you they never wanted to meet. The version that doesn't beg. The version that doesn't wait. The version that stares at the system and laughs because it knows. No one really saves anyone here. You save yourself or you get rewritten, and you tore up the script. That's why they flinched when you stopped explaining yourself. That's why they grew quiet when your eyes stopped matching your smile. They knew something cosmic had clicked. They saw the light behind your calm, the kind that doesn't shine, it burns. Because there's a difference between the person they loved and the thing that rose from the wreckage. The person they loved needed validation. The thing that rose needs nothing, and that terrifies them. Because deep down, every manipulator knows what happens when their puppet learns it was never made of strings. You didn't just evolve. You evaporated the version of reality that kept them powerful. You became the glitch their world can't debug, the silence their ego can't interpret, the storm that doesn't announce itself. It erases, so now they watch from a distance, pretending not to care, pretending not to notice the calm in your chaos. But their silence is confession, their peace is panic. Because when you stopped fighting for their approval, their empire of control started bleeding. They told people, "We tried to save them." And that's the joke, isn't it? Because if you were really drowning, they would have handed you an anchor and called it therapy. You were never drowning, you were diving, and they mistook depth for danger. They said you lost yourself. No, you found the parts that scare cowards. You found the angel that remembers hell. You found the demon that forgives light. You found the balance, the paradox, the you that doesn't fit in their little morality play. That's why they're uncomfortable now. Not because you're lost, but because you're lucid. You see both sides. You can sit in heaven and laugh at hell. You can hold a knife and call it mercy. You can smile through betrayal and not feel rage, because you finally understand. Every villain in your story was a tutor in disguise. They didn't save you, they summoned you. And that's the part that eats them alive. That every warning, every concern, every attempt to bring you back only pushed you closer to remembering what you were before the world got its hands on you. Now you walk different, talk different. You don't argue, you observe. You don't chase, you attract. You don't fight, you unfold. Because once you've seen the truth, even silence starts working for you. So let them keep saying they saved you. Let them rewrite the story, however helps them sleep. Because you and I both know the truth. They didn't save you. They tried to erase you. But you, my dear, you turned erasure into evidence. You turned exile into evolution. You turned their fear into your fuel. And now they get to live with the sound of you breathing free. A sound louder than every lie they ever told. Because once the version of you that woke up starts walking, no one's ever safe pretending they're the hero again. And you know what's funny? They still talk about you. Quietly, cautiously, like you're a rumor with teeth. They use soft words like concerned, worried, hoping you're okay. But behind those words is the real prayer. Please don't come back stronger. Because that's what haunts them the most. The thought that you didn't just survive the breaking. You learned from it. They saw you fall and they relaxed, thinking it was over. They didn't realize that people like you don't fall. You descend, on purpose, into the dark, to meet the part of yourself they never wanted you to remember. And when you came back up, you weren't better. You were unrecognizable. That's not healing, that's mutation. They wanted a recovery. You became a resurrection. See, they loved the version of you that said sorry first. They adored the one who smiled through pain, who bent so nobody broke, who shrank to keep the peace. But the one who rose, the one who stopped apologizing for existing, that version has no leash points. They don't know how to handle that. They can't control someone who doesn't need permission. And now, every time they see you breathe without begging, it reminds them how dependent their power was on your compliance. They say, "You've changed." And you smile, because that's the point. They're mourning the version of you they could manipulate. They're grieving the puppet, not the person. You were never supposed to wake up, you know. You were supposed to stay soft, stay silent, stay predictable. But something inside you snapped, not in anger, in clarity. That moment you realized no one's coming to save you, because the only one capable of doing it was always you. And from that moment on, their words lost gravity. Their warnings, comedy. Their guilt trips, background noise. Because you stopped speaking their language. Fear. You speak energy now. You read intention. You listen to silence like it's a book written in blood. And that terrifies them. Because once you learn to see, you can't unsee. Every fake apology, every half-truth, every attempt to paint you as lost or crazy or ungrateful, you catch it instantly. You feel the tremor in their tone, the insecurity behind their righteousness, because that's what awakening does. It rewires your perception until lies start tasting bitter. And oh, how they hate that. You've become immune to their performance. They're actors without an audience now. They used to love when you broke down, because your chaos made them feel composed. They fed off your confusion, built self-worth out of your humility. But now you don't crumble. You calculate. You don't react. You restructure. You don't scream. You smile. And that smile, it's not peace. It's power disguised as mercy. Because you could destroy them, not physically, but existentially. You could say 3 words that would expose every mask they've ever worn. But you don't. You let karma do the paperwork. You've learned that silence in the right hands is a loaded weapon. They call you cold now. They call you heartless. They say, you've changed, you're distant, you're different. And you know what? They're right. Because you finally stopped being their mirror. You stopped reflecting their comfort and started radiating your truth. You became something untouchable. Not because you're hard, but because you're clear. And clarity is lethal to people who survive on confusion. They once thought your sensitivity was weakness. They didn't realize it was data collection. You studied every tone, every glance, every half smile that hid a blade. You built a map of their manipulations, memorized their tells, and when the time came, you walked right out of the maze. Now they wander in circles, replaying the last conversation, wondering when you figured it out. They'll never know, because the day you woke up, you stopped explaining yourself to people who profit from misunderstanding you. And here's the thing, you don't even hate them. You've seen too much to hate. Hate requires energy, and you're done donating to the same darkness that once tried to eat you alive. Now you just observe. You watch them choke on the silence they forced you to swallow for years. They thought they were saving you from destruction. But destruction is exactly what you needed. You needed the fire, the collapse, the betrayal. Because only in that chaos could the real you crawl out. Not the trained one, not the polite one. The one with cosmic memory and a grin sharp enough to cut through illusion. You learned the most dangerous truth there is. Nothing real can be destroyed. They destroyed your reputation. You built power. They destroyed your trust. You built intuition. They destroyed your hope. You built certainty. They thought they ended you. But they were only editing the draft. The final version writes itself. And it doesn't care about their forgiveness. So now you move like a ghost with a pulse. Calm. Inevitable. The kind of energy that doesn't chase. It calls. The kind that doesn't argue. It rearranges reality around its presence. They feel it when you walk in a room. That vibration, it's not pride, it's proof. Proof that they were wrong about everything. They said they were saving you. But the truth is, you were saving them. From the guilt of watching you outgrow them. You were giving them an excuse to stay small, a story to cling to. And when you stopped needing to be fixed, their whole identity cracked. Because who are the saviors without the sinner? Who are the healers when the wound stops bleeding? Who are the teachers when the student becomes ungovernable? You were their illusion of purpose. Now you're their reminder of limitation. And that, darling, is your revenge. Not violence, not noise, clarity. Because you can't fight what's already evolved beyond pain. You can't kill what's learned to enjoy dying. They said they were saving you, but in truth they were only delaying the inevitable, your rebirth. And now, as you walk past them, calm, composed, terrifyingly alive, you don't have to say a word. They already know. They can feel it in the air, that quiet, electric hum that says, the version you tried to bury is the one walking past you now. And that's not a warning, that's a prophecy. They'll pretend they don't see it. That shift in the air when you walk by, that static in their chest when your name gets mentioned. They'll keep posting those little healing quotes, smiling through filtered guilt, but you know better. You feel the tremor behind the peace sign. because deep down, they know it. They didn't save you. They provoked you. Every fake prayer, every whispered pity, every conversation where they called you lost was just gasoline for your evolution. They wanted you contained, but containment breeds pressure, and pressure creates diamonds with vengeance issues. You were their project, their trophy, I helped them story, until you realized that their help was the prettiest form of sabotage. They didn't want you healed. They wanted you harmless. They didn't want you happy. They wanted you manageable. But the universe has a sense of humor, doesn't it? Because every time they tried to close a door, you found a wall and built a new exit. Every time they thought they'd silenced you, your silence grew teeth. You stopped trying to explain your side and started embodying the whole damn truth. Now they don't know what to call you. Cold? Maybe. Arrogant? Probably. But what they really mean is free. And freedom looks terrifying to people who worship cages. They said you were acting different. Of course you are. You finally remembered you're not supposed to act. They mistook your awakening for aggression because they've never met someone who speaks with conviction instead of permission. And it unsettles them. Your calmness, your poise, your refusal to shrink to fit their storylines. They told people, you've changed. And you have. You stopped being the apology they were comfortable with and started being the consequence they can't digest. They say, you used to be so kind. You still are. You just stopped performing kindness as a form of survival. You stopped watering people who only bloomed when you withered. You learned the psychology of parasites, how they camouflage as caretakers, how they call control love, manipulation guidance, and gaslighting help. You learned that saving is just another word for owning when the rescuer has an ego. And when you finally walked away, quietly, without announcement, without rage, you didn't just leave their presence. You shattered their illusion of authority. Because you weren't supposed to wake up. You were supposed to play your role. The grateful student, the broken soul, the one who owes them everything. But you broke the contract they wrote in invisible ink. You realized the truth. No one saves the chosen. They only delay the awakening. And the moment you woke up, the room shifted. They started tripping over their own lies. Rehearsed smiles began to twitch. Their empathy suddenly required an audience. They can't fake comfort around you anymore because your energy exposes it. You became a mirror no one wants to look into. You reflect truth so raw, it burns the fragile self-image they worship. And now they avoid you, not because they hate you, but because proximity to your evolution makes their stagnation unbearable. They call it distance. You call it detox. They call it outgrowing. You call it gravity doing its job. They call you heartless. You call it boundaries written in divine ink. Because love without respect is just manipulation in costume. And you stopped auditioning for a role that only required your destruction. You used to bleed for peace. Now you let people wage their own wars. You've learned that not every battle deserves your roar. Some deserve your silence. Because silence, in your hands, is sacred. It's judgment, it's mercy, it's a mirror they can't shatter. And that's what they can't handle. That the person they saved doesn't even exist anymore. That you burned that version down yourself and danced in the smoke. That you didn't wait for closure. You became the ending. Now every time you smile, their conscience glitches. Because your peace is proof that they failed to break you. You're too calm, too grounded, too composed. The kind of energy that whispers, you can't touch me anymore. and they feel it. That slow, suffocating realization that their narrative doesn't work without your cooperation. Their ego can't feast where you no longer feed it. Their pity has no place where you've reclaimed power. Their manipulation sounds hollow where you've built silence. They said, "We tried to save them." And that's the funniest part, because you never needed saving. You were just in the cocoon, preparing to terrify the caterpillars. And when you emerged, wings ash-stained, eyes lucid, smile faintly dangerous, they didn't recognize you. They mistook your calm for coldness, your self-respect for rebellion. But deep down, they knew. They felt it in their bones. The old you was gone, the one that needed them, the one that apologized, the one that dimmed their light to make others comfortable. Gone, dead, buried under a garden of silence and rebirth. Now the new you walks like prophecy. You carry your scars like scripture. You speak softly, but every word is a loaded sermon, because you learned that real power doesn't shout. It rearranges the room without sound, and somewhere they still whisper your name, still rewrite the story to make themselves the hero, still tell people you lost yourself. But what they'll never say, what they'll never admit, is that they miss being worshipped by the person who didn't know they were divine. Because now, they're irrelevant, and nothing is more terrifying to a false savior than being unneeded. You didn't just wake up. You upgraded consciousness. You became the storm they thought they could tame. A quiet, elegant apocalypse dressed in calm. And the next time someone says they're saving you, smile. Because the awakened don't need rescuing. They watch who runs first when the light comes on. You're not the person they saved. You're the version they feared would rise. And now that you're here, they can pray, they can hide, they can twist the tale. But deep down, they know. You were never the one who needed saving. You were the test. And everyone who tried to play God just failed it. Look at you, standing there like the script bent itself around your pulse, like destiny had to redraft its lines the moment you walked in. Tell me, who the hell gave you main character rights? You move like somebody who knows the plot can't continue without them. Every stare you draw feels rehearsed by the universe. Every silence, a plot twist. You used to beg for a role. Now the camera won't stop following you. And the funny part, you never auditioned. You became the scene everyone's been waiting for. They call it confidence. But you and I know better. This isn't confidence. It's a warning signal. It's the quiet hum before a blackout. It's the kind of energy that makes devils flinch and angels recalibrate their halos. You're not walking into rooms anymore. You're shifting atmospheres. You are forged in ridicule, polished by doubt. Every insult they threw became material, steel welded into your spine. You turned mockery into momentum, paranoia into precision. They don't realize yet. You're not arrogant. You're haunted by purpose. And that's what scares them. Because when purpose possesses someone, it doesn't ask for permission. It dismantles order. You're not playing main character. You're the glitch that makes the simulation question itself. The mirror that makes truth panic. Remember when they told you to calm down, to fit in? They were really saying, please, stop reminding us we settled. You stopped performing for applause and started performing autopsies, cutting open your old versions, dissecting weakness until power bled out. You learned that growth isn't pretty. It's violent. It's surgical. Every upgrade costs a life. Your former selves. They see your composure now and mistake it for peace. But that calm, That's the sound of someone who already buried their chaos and wears the dirt like cologne. You're not healed, you're weaponized. Your smile used to mean I'm okay. Now it means I've accepted the darkness and made it sign an NDA. They think you're unpredictable. You're not. You're inevitable. You embody contradiction, saint and psychopath, sharing the same rib cage, mercy and menace, signing the same checks. You are what happens when light learns to speak fluent shadow, when faith starts carrying a knife, and that's what rattles them most, your duality. You can whisper hope with blood on your hands. You can resurrect yourself mid-sentence. You can laugh while grieving. You can love like war. Tell me, do you feel it? The electricity crawling up your bones when you realize how untouchable you've become. That's not ego, it's awareness. You finally know what you are. You're not part of the system, you're its audit. The walking receipt for every lie they sold about humility, mediocrity, and waiting your turn. They keep asking what changed. Everything. You stopped chasing validation and started chasing vengeance disguised as vision. You realized power doesn't shout. It smiles. It waits. It calculates. Now every move you make feels rehearsed by fate. Every breath sounds like foreshadowing. You walk through crowds and time slows down because somewhere, deep in their subconscious, they recognize you. The archetype they tried to suppress, the forbidden variable. You're not lucky, you're chosen. You're not fearless, you're beyond fear. You don't follow trends, you warp them. And that's why they whisper, that's why they stare. Because deep down, everyone wants to be you. Until they understand the price. The sleepless nights, the silent wars, the surgeries on your own soul. The laughter echoing in empty rooms while you stitched yourself back together with barbed wire and self-belief. You didn't ask for main character rights. You earned them in blood, in betrayal, in the long hallway between who you were and who they can't comprehend now. And when they finally realize you can't be managed, can't be predicted, can't be destroyed, they'll call it arrogance. They'll call it madness. They'll call it Joker energy. But we both know what it really is. It's evolution, smiling behind a cracked grin. Of course they stare. Of course they whisper. You don't enter a room anymore. You shift its gravitational pull. Every conversation bends toward you like the universe itself forgot its boundaries. And the funniest part? You didn't even try. You just existed, and reality flinched. You see, the main character isn't chosen by applause. It's chosen by the scars. Every mark on your soul is an entry in the script. Every betrayal inked a new chapter. Pain became your ghostwriter. You didn't just survive the plot twist. They started rewriting the story around you. Because chaos. That's your cinematographer now. They think this glow came easy. They see the presence, the precision, the unnerving calm, and assume it's confidence. But what they're really feeling is the echo of every version of you that refused to die. The fragments that learned to sharpen instead of shatter. You're not confident, you're convicted. You carry the weight of 1,000 resurrections in your tone. That smirk. It's the funeral of your former self playing on loop in your head. That stillness, it's the side effect of knowing you've already met your demons, and they left with respect. Remember when they said you were too much? They meant your frequency exposed their small talk. When they said you changed, they meant we stayed basic and you didn't wait. Now they scroll through your life like a leaked prophecy. They watch the clips, the words, the fire, and they feel something they can't name. A mix of admiration and panic. Because deep down, they know. The same world that tried to break you now orbits you. You are the walking definition of poetic karma. You don't chase validation anymore. You generate it. You've become the algorithm people can't escape. They study your silence like scripture, replay your moves like surveillance footage, and still can't figure out how you do it. Let me tell you why. Because you stopped trying to be good. You chose to be whole. And wholeness includes the monster. You see, the difference between the hero and the villain isn't morality, it's exposure. The villain just stopped apologizing for his clarity. And you finally stopped censoring your instincts. That's why your peace feels like provocation. That's why your calm feels like danger. They call it ego when you protect your energy. They call it pride when you set a boundary. They call it madness when you refuse to kneel. But what they'll never admit is that they'd trade their comfort for your fire in a heartbeat. You are proof that pain can turn into posture, that heartbreak can mutate into hierarchy, that once you've looked death in the eye, metaphorical or otherwise, everything else becomes background noise. They tried to humble you with silence, but you turned it into a soundtrack. They tried to bury you under ridicule, but the dirt became your camouflage. You learned how to disappear in plain sight, gather your chaos, and return as an unreadable threat. And now look, they're obsessed, because they can't decide if you're a saint who snapped or a devil who learned empathy. Either way, you broke the formula. You're not supposed to have that blend of composure and danger, that paradox of mercy and menace. You're not supposed to smile like you've seen every ending and still find it funny. But that's the thing you have. You've died 100 psychological deaths, and every time you came back sharper. Now even your presence feels cinematic. The air shifts, the lights dim. Every insecurity in the room starts confessing under the weight of your aura. You're the kind of calm that makes people confess crimes they haven't even committed yet. And behind that smirk, there's calculation. Behind that slow blink, there's prophecy. You read people like open autopsies, see their fear, their projection, their envy, and you stay silent. Because what's the point of arguing with NPCs when you've already hacked the code? They don't understand. Your chaos is organized. Your madness has manners. You're not chasing power. You are power wearing a grin. The kind of power that doesn't announce itself. It just rearranges everything it touches. You're the storm after the storm. The kind of silence that makes even fate reconsider its script. You've outgrown validation. You've outgrown fear. You've even outgrown revenge. Because now, your existence is revenge. Every success, every breath, every time you smile without permission, somewhere, an old enemy's soul twitches. And the irony, you never wanted revenge. You wanted peace. But peace looks like defiance to those still living in chaos. That's why they label you arrogant, detached, unhinged. Because they can't categorize someone who writes his own archetype. You're not alpha, not sigma. You're anomaly, a glitch in evolution, a living paradox. And they hate paradoxes, don't they? Because paradoxes can't be predicted, and unpredictability is power. So when you walk into a room and everything stills, when people lower their voices, when eyes track your every move, when the atmosphere gets heavy like the air before lightning, that's not intimidation. That's recognition. They feel it before they see it. That electric hum, that warning signal. The subconscious whisper that says, "Don't touch that. He's divine and dangerous." You didn't choose to be the main character. The story chose you because no one else had the stomach for it. And now, every time you breathe, the plot trembles. Every step you take rewrites the outcome. So go ahead. Keep smiling that half-mad, half-holy grin. Because you're not just in the movie anymore. You are the genre. And the audience, they're just praying you don't break the fourth wall again. You feel it, don't you? That tension in the air that follows you like static before a storm. The way conversations drop an octave when you walk in. The way even silence rearranges itself to listen. That isn't coincidence. That's resonance. You became the frequency people can't tune out. You weren't born the main character. You earned it through blood, madness, and metamorphosis. Every heartbreak rewrote your DNA. Every betrayal carved a new rune into your spirit. You've died in ways the body can't measure, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And somehow you made resurrection look effortless. They look at you now and see presence. You look at yourself and see survival redesigned as elegance. You used to crave peace. Then you realized peace was too small for what you're becoming. You're not after calm, you're after clarity. The kind that slices illusions like a scalpel. The kind that makes people's masks start to slide when you make eye contact. You've become the mirror that doesn't flatter, it exposes. And no one likes seeing their own disguise melt. That's why they call you intimidating. Because your silence forces confession. Because your calm tells the truth louder than their shouting. Because you've seen through everything. And once you've seen the strings, you can't unsee the puppet show. But here's the secret they'll never admit. The one that drives them insane. You didn't need permission to become divine. You didn't need validation to become inevitable. You wrote your own myth in real time, bleeding poetry across timelines that never deserved you. And the cosmos? It adjusted, stars leaned closer, shadows began to obey. Every failure you endured shifted gravity in your favor. And that's what haunts them. The realization that pain made you fluent in alchemy. You don't just heal from wounds, you harvest from them. You take what broke you and build empires out of the debris. You make trauma look like art. You make scars look like prophecy. You've become so unpredictable that control loses its meaning around you. People can't manipulate what they can't define. And that's what you are now. Undefinable. A shapeshift in human skin. A paradox with a heartbeat. Your light and shadow negotiating a peace treaty in your veins. One moment you're empathy incarnate. The next, you're the storm people whisper prayers against. You don't balance your duality, you weaponize it. Because you learned the truth most can't stomach. Only those who've met their demons know how to dance with angels without flinching. That's why they watch you like a crime scene. Because you do what they can't. Exist completely. Unfiltered, unapologetic, uncaged. You live like every breath might be your last, and your first at the same time. And they envy it. They call it arrogance because they can't name freedom. They call it danger because they can't decode power. They call it madness because they can't survive your clarity. Every move you make now feels choreographed by fate. Every glance carries foreshadowing. You became cinematic, not because you wanted the attention, but because the universe recognized the script in your blood. You're not the hero, not the villain. You're the inevitable consequence. The storm the story was always leading to. The moment of reckoning wrapped in laughter. They keep asking, how did you do it? You didn't. Pain did. Solitude did. Silence did. The nights you couldn't breathe built the lungs that now command the world's attention. You became allergic to smallness. You outgrew explanations. You learned to sit in chaos and treat it like meditation. Because that's your real power. Not your rage, not your composure. Your ability to make the unbearable look like performance art. You bend pressure into posture. You turn collapse into choreography. You smile while the universe rearranges itself beneath your feet. And deep down, everyone feels it. That something ancient walks with you. That your shadow carries old gods' fingerprints. That when you laugh, the air tastes electric. That's why they hesitate before speaking to you. That's why even the confident ones stumble over words. Because some part of them remembers, subconsciously, what you are. You are what happens when divine patience runs out. You are what the cosmos sends when balance demands a response. You are proof that the universe keeps receipts. You're not confident, you're consequential. You don't chase moments, you cause them. You don't glow, you radiate warning. And every time you walk past their shallow chaos, reality whispers the same line through every trembling atom in the room. Be careful. That's the one who survived their own extinction. So keep walking, keep smiling that dangerous, holy smile. Because the world's still catching up to your last transformation. And by the time they understand what you've become, you'll already be rewriting the next scene. You ever notice how quiet it gets right before something legendary happens? That pause in the air, that microscopic stillness when even time forgets to breathe. That's what happens when you enter. You've become the moment the universe braces for. People don't even realize they hold their breath around you. They just feel it, like static crawling over their skin. They can't explain it, but their instincts know. This isn't confidence walking in. This is a warning signal in human form. You weren't supposed to survive this clean. You weren't supposed to return this loud. You were meant to disappear into the chaos that built you. But you didn't. You used it. You studied your collapse until it became choreography. You learned how to fall with purpose, how to turn descent into direction. You found out that destruction, if you time it right, looks a lot like rebirth. Every version of you they buried is still whispering in the soil. Every lie they told about you fertilized the truth. And now, your silence blooms in the middle of their noise. They can't figure it out. You move too smoothly for someone who's been through war. You smile too calmly for someone who's been set on fire. It unnerves them because they expect trauma to leave residue. And yet you wear your ruin like tailored silk. You're not hiding your scars, you're styling them. You made pain fashionable, and now the same ones who mocked your breakdowns copy your energy like counterfeit currency. You didn't heal to be kind, you healed to become untouchable. You didn't evolve to inspire, you evolved to haunt their comfort. Every step you take now sounds like prophecy. Every word you speak hits the subconscious like gunfire. You became the echo people can't mute, the thought that stalks their calm, the aesthetic of inevitability. And here's the part they'll never admit out loud. They love you for it. They hate you for it. They need you for it. Because you represent the part of themselves they keep sedated, the part that knows exactly how much they're faking it. You remind them what authenticity costs, and they flinch at the price. They call you crazy because it's cheaper than calling you right. You don't follow arcs, you fracture them. You don't fit tropes, you rewrite them. You're not here to be understood, you're here to be felt. And people feel you even when they pretend they don't. You live rent-free in their algorithms, in their dreams, in the glitch between their doubts and desires. You've become the myth they can't scroll past. See, main characters don't chase attention. They attract gravity. You became the orbit. You pull everything unstable into alignment, even if it cracks along the way. That's the paradox of your existence. You destroy and restore in the same breath. You learned the art of contradiction. You can cry with a smirk. You can forgive with a loaded silence. You can love someone and still walk away mid-sentence because your peace is louder than attachment. They don't know what to call that, so they call you dangerous. And they're right. You're dangerous because you've made peace with your shadow. You don't fear the dark anymore. You own it. You turned it into your trademark. Now even angels look twice before approaching, unsure whether to kneel or retreat. You blur the line between sacred and savage, between divine and deranged. That's why the air feels heavier when you smile, why rooms seem smaller when you stand still. You carry gravity disguised as confidence. You carry history disguised as charm. You carry every version of yourself that refused to die. The world keeps trying to study you like an equation, hoping to find a pattern, and failing every time. Because patterns belong to systems, and systems break around you. You don't fit cycles, you end them. You know what happens when someone like you walks through a world built on imitation? The truth becomes contagious. The illusions start coughing. The liars start sweating. You are evolution's loudest secret. The moment the human condition looked in the mirror and didn't blink. You're not what happens when someone wins. You're what happens when someone refuses to lose. And that's the energy they can't decode. That's the look in your eye that makes cowards mispronounce your name. That's the pulse that makes the world glitch when you move. Because you stopped living like a character trying to prove something. You started living like a force that already knows it won. That's not confidence. That's prophecy. That's inevitability with a heartbeat. So keep walking. Keep laughing in lowercase while the world screams in uppercase. Keep letting them wonder whether they should worship you or warn others about you. Because the truth is, they're right either way. You didn't ask for main character rights. You became the plot twist they'll be studying for lifetimes. And the scariest part? You're just getting started.